I think the education justice movement lives here in Pittsburgh. You heard Angel Goldberg say earlier that when Teach for America was putting unqualified teachers in urban classrooms, communities organized and booted them out. When privatizers wanted to close schools instead of focusing on equity, parents, young people, educators came together and they stopped school closings. But they didn't just say what they were against. They came with a positive vision. They said, we want sustainable community schools. We want evidence-driven reforms in order to improve education for our children. And they have 9 now and more to come. They said, we want to stop the racist zero-tolerance policies that target black and brown children, right? And so they organized and they won a kindergarten or second grade suspension ban. But I want the audience to think about why should someone have to organize to stop someone from suspending 5- and 6-year-olds? And so that work that's done here in Pittsburgh is also done in New York. It's also done in Camden, New Jersey. It's also done in Chicago. It's also done in Detroit. The illusion that black, brown, indigenous families don't care about our children is also a weak excuse, a weak departure from the mandate of equity. You know, Lily talked about the fact that where did the Elementary, Secondary, and Education Act come from? That it emerged from the Civil Rights Movement. Well, we would say, on behalf of the Journey for Justice Alliance, we've had bipartisan failure of that mandate. And so our work today is to encourage Democratic presidential candidates to step up to the plate and to look at the fact that we don't have failing schools, but as a public, we've been failed. See, we represent that mother who's had to send their child to 3 schools in 5 years. We represent that 14-year-old who's treated like a criminal in a school instead of being embraced. We represent that teacher who's in a classroom with no technology, that young person that goes to a school where there are no robotics, there is no world language. That's not our fault. That's the fault of a system that intentionally provides one quality of education for one group of children, but denies that justice for another group of children. And so this moment is important because we all come from different places. I wasn't born on the same block as Lily or Randy, but for all the privatizers who try to say that community groups that stand with teachers, that we're teacher union hacks, I want to tell you, I'm from the south side of Chicago, all right? And I want to say this. I have a lot more in common with a teacher than a hedge funder. I have a lot more in common with Randy Weingarten than Eli Broad. And I think that we have to be very clear. So for members of the media who raise those questions, I would say, when will you start asking who's funding that side? When will you start asking that question? Because I'm clear that to the young people who tugged on my pants leg, to the second graders at Mollison Elementary School on the south side of Chicago, who tugged on my pants leg in the gym room and begged me, Mr. Jitu, will they reopen my school? Because they were displaced from a receiving school. That's who I represent. Those voices are the ones that I hear. So I think this moment is important because this is not about some type of moment that we're making up. People are fighting for justice all over the country. Right now in Oakland, California, parents are fighting to stop school closings. Right now in Little Rock, Arkansas, people are organizing in Little Rock, where 9 brave souls risked their lives. They orchestrated an unjust state takeover and took away people's right to vote, to elect their school boards in order to grease the rails for school privatization. That should not be acceptable, and it's not acceptable to us. So we're honored to be a part of this moment, and I think Pittsburgh is important because, again, it's where education justice movement lives, and we want to make sure that the voices of people in this audience are heard.
Thank you, Jitu.